Welcome to the Uncharted podcast. I am your host, Inés Franklin. My hope for you today is that we discover faith beyond the boundaries. Uncharted is intended to be a safe place for you to listen, learn, and challenge yourself along your journey of faith. May grace and peace be with you today. Welcome to the show.
Simplicity. Well, welcome back. Simplicity is what we're talking about today. I am one of your co-hosts, Kayleigh Antenucci, and today we are talking about the spiritual practice of simplicity. And if any of you guys listened to the podcast 2 weeks ago, I made the mention that this one is going to be aligned. And you may be asking yourself, how in the world, Kayleigh, did you think these are going to be aligned? So you're just going to have to listen in, because trust me, it's going to all match up and you're going to be like, whoa, that's so cool. So well, how do you feel about the spiritual practice of simplicity, Mom?
Well, hi, I'm Inés Franklin, and simplicity, I am not a simple person. So I'm not, so yeah. I overcomplicate everything. Isn't that true, Kayleigh? I overcomplicate everything.
I think that's being hard on yourself. Okay, as your director of operations and your co-podcaster, I think what you do is you see all the little pieces. It's not that you overcomplicate. You see everything. But I do think that, like, we being in Orange County don't live very simplistic lives, and that's just the reality, right? Like, I think we are surrounded by a lot of excess, not a lot of simplicity.
Yes. Now, I'm going to read to us Adele's definition, because we've been doing this in all the podcasts, and I think this helps a lot as we talk. She defines this practice as simplicity cultivates the great art of letting go. Simplicity aims at loosening inordinate attachment to owning and having. Simplicity brings freedom, and with it, generosity. So I was talking about overcomplicating. And I think, in a way, I can hoard systems. I can hoard ideas. I definitely hoard learning. I have a lot of books. Amazon is my best friend. And I used to love bookstores a lot, but now I'm really lazy. I don't leave the house. I just buy them quickly right off my phone. That's not simple, right? It's collecting things. So that's an area for me. This is a good spiritual practice for me to be a little bit more intentional about, to be honest, in my life.
Yeah. I always make the joke that I could live in a van. And I truly do believe that. Like, there's a good part of me that, like, loves camping, loves simplicity. Like, I could do the van life, and just give up all my stuff. But then I look at my closet. Listen, I don't even it's not even that I wear a whole lot of clothes. You guys have probably seen me in the same outfits. Okay. I wear the same 5 things all the time, but I just need options, because you never know, when you're just inspiration.
You don't get rid of things. You also don't get rid of things. Yeah, I don't either. I'm the same way.
Yeah. It's so interesting. So, I mean, there is a good portion of me that's like, simplicity would be really great. Like, simplicity is important and it's challenging, and it's like because I just always in my brain, I'm like, but what if in the future I want X, Y, or Z? What if in the future I need that thing that I gave up? And I don't even get rid of the kids' toys for that reason. Like, well, what if they decide to play with it when they haven't touched it in a year? Which one
they
time,
do, and they do these things. They do. They're 8 and they start playing with something that they didn't play when they were 4. Yes.
Yep. And so you hold on to everything. But I do think that this idea of not holding on is so nice. The idea of releasing seems so, so nice. And it really does challenge me to do it differently. But I guess the question I have is, why is that a spiritual practice? How does simplicity help us grow closer to God? Which I know we talked about 2 weeks ago with our other one. So what does she say?
Well, basically, I think in the end, here's what she says: to uncomplicate and untangle my life so I can focus on what really matters. So it's prioritizing what's most important. And again, this is a spiritual practice. So we're talking about growing closer to God. And when I hold on to everything and don't, or I want more and more and more, I'm simultaneously believing the lie that God isn't going to provide for me when I need it, or that I'm in charge of my own comfort or my own provision. So it's forgetting that I have a good God who gives me generously, and he gives me what I need, and there's more than enough, that I don't need
Mm.
to have more.
It reminds me of my absolute favorite passage, which is look at the birds in the sky, right?
Yeah.
They have everything that they need. This is in Matthew. It's actually part of the
Yes.
Sermon on the Mount. And it's like
Yes.
they have everything that they need. And then look at the lilies in the field, and they are dressed and they are beautiful. Like if he is caring for these beings that live in the air and these flowers that you find on the ground, how much more would he care for you as his son or daughter? And I think that is like, it's always my reminder. I always go back to that. I go back towards that whenever I'm talking about generosity. I go back towards that when we talk about, like, this is great as a reminder of, like, even with simplicity of, like, absolutely, he will give us exactly what we need when we need it. We do not need excess. We do not need more. We do not need to hoard in fear of him not showing up. It really comes down to even, like, our faith in God, right? So, like, simplicity, being simple, simplifying our home will also even bring us faith, because we are living off of what we need, or off of what God is even saying we need, and not necessarily what we want. So I think it's like just a good reminder.
So I was thinking too that this concept of simplicity is good for it's a counterpoint to our hoarding, our collection. And you don't have to be a hoarder per se to be someone who's collecting far beyond what you need. So when I use that term, I'm not calling us all hoarders. Maybe we are, but I'm saying that's not my point. But truly, right? We can be generous when
Yeah.
we learn to live with less. We can go through our closet and say, okay, I can let this go and give it to someone else who needs it, or not buy more. I was watching a video recently that talked about how many pieces of clothing people used to have long ago, and how ridiculous the amount of pieces of clothing that we all have now. the,
Yeah.
the the insane abundance of just clothing or stuff is incredible. I really noticed this when my mom moved from her place to an assisted living. This happened also to my sister. And, they just have a little closet. So everything in their apartment I had to reduce down to one little closet. And I realized how little she really needed, how little we really
Mm.
need. We just
Yeah.
don't need that as much stuff as we collect. So practicing simplicity on a regular basis is a good antidote to not over collecting and forgetting that God is the provider of all good things, but also creating space to be generous like God is generous. So
Yeah.
we draw closer to God because we realize, like, God, I want to depend on you for whatever these things do for me. Having more stuff, more computers, more books, more whatever that's doing for me, God, I want you to do that for me instead. I want you to give me
Yeah.
that peace in my heart, or that joy, or that sense of wellness. I want to get it from you and not from things.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking too, as you were saying that, like, how much, and I don't want to use this as a cop out. Okay. So anyone listening, please hear me. I'm not using this as a cop out. I take ownership. Okay. But we live in Orange County. And for those of you who do not live near or around Orange County, or do not know about Orange County is like one of the most high consumerism areas. Like, I feel like the concept of simplicity almost would be perceived, if not would be perceived for sure, as you just not having enough, And so I
Mm.
definitely feel like, personally, out in the world, we're not talking about like Jesus, but like out in the world, this concept of like not over consuming, or like not doing that, or just having what's needed, not more than is needed, is looked down upon in the area in which we
Mm.
live. And so then that makes it tricky too, because you feel like, which you shouldn't. Okay, hear me out again. You should not have to go for what God, like other people around you are telling you you should. But it's so easy to. I remember when we moved here. You know what a story I'm going to tell you? I remember when we
Yes.
moved here and we were driving around. So we did not grow up. I did not grow up here. I grew up, my mom grew up, and I grew up in like Long Beach. I grew up in a normal town, actually a very nice little neighborhood with very close to Long Beach. But like, if you guys know that area, right? Like it's just I'd say normal. It's like suburbia
Yeah.
normal. And
Whatever normal
then we
is, middle
moved.
class,
Yeah,
baby.
middle class. That's a better word. So like we grew up in like a middle class area. Like everything was, yeah, just like probably what people see in a lot of the United States. So if we're talking the United States, it's probably like more normal, more average. Then we moved here and we are dealing with the top 5%, both in what is financially normal to people here and in what people are driving and what people are wearing and what people are doing. And I remember being in the car with my mom one day and just seeing like Mercedes and BMWs, and these are
Yeah.
not cars that I was used to seeing ever. Like this was not a normal thing for me. And just saying like, I just don't want to become this person. So mom, we are not going to become this person, that this is like what we do every day, and but like, okay, I've now lived here for 20 years and it has become a norm for me. Like I don't,
Mhm.
granted, you guys, I
You
do
didn't even
not drive
notice
that
it.
kind of car. Right. But like, I don't think about it.
Yeah.
I don't worry. Like to me, that is what pretty much everyone around me, those are the kind of cars, that's the kind of stuff they're wearing. Like to the point that the fact that I am like very low key, I wear t-shirts and workout pants like 99% of the time. I am the outlier. I am the outlier, that
Mm.
I'm not out here buying like designer purses or designer cars or like all this sort of stuff. That I just have my normal stuff makes me unique, and it just became something that it's not meant to be, that it was never supposed to be. And I love this. It challenges me. It reminds me of like who God actually like has us being, who he desires us to be, that he desires for us to have simple lives that are not like focused in things and in stuff that is worldly in our temporary home. So I really love that reminder.
Yeah, and it's Adele talks about not having your identity attached to those things,
Yeah.
right? Not having your sense of self, your sense of worth attached to, the abundance of things that you might be able to collect, but making and remembering that your identity is secure in Christ always, whether
Yeah.
you have a lot or little. I know this is a posture that I would love to have, Paul's posture, where he says, I learned to be content with much and also content with little. So because I have
Yeah.
Christ with me at all times. Jim and I traveled to Sri Lanka many years ago, and we stayed at the pastor's house. They had a little side room just outside their place, and we were sleeping there. And they were telling us that the night before there was a snake outside, and we were kind of a little freaked out about that because that's not uncommon in a very tropical area. So we were pretty nervous sleeping in this very, very basic little room with so little, and then out there in the wilderness, where there could be. And
Of their
then it
backyard.
dawned on us. It dawned on us. We were like, gosh, have we gotten like
Comfortable.
spoiled and
Yeah.
and comfortable, and it was a really good thing for us, to the point now where we're quite often when we travel we will make a point of getting a place that is very easy for us to afford and is not as nice as some of the other places we've been, just to practice simplicity. Like a good clean bed is fine.
Yeah.
If we're not going to be, that's not where we're spending our time. A good clean bed is more than enough. That trip was a beautiful trip. We had the most amazing time with our friends there. And yeah, it didn't matter. It was not that important. There were other things that were more important. So
Yeah.
obviously, we're talking about this practice of simplicity as a way for us to disconnect from the things of this world and connect tighter to God and to who he says we are, and then to connect to his heart of generosity and again simplicity, because God, even Adele talks about like our words could be another place where we can use simplicity. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Like practicing simplicity in so many ways, not just in things that we have. I know we've been talking a lot about that, but there's so many ways in which to practice simplicity. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
this would
it's so
challenge
funny
us, Kayleigh. Did it
it
challenge
will.
us?
Yes, definitely. And by the way, this is what you just said
Whew.
was what I was going to say, because I told you guys that our Control the Tongue episode and the Simplicity episode was going to align, and without even knowing, Miss Franklin, without even knowing, you brought it in for us. So I love that so much, and I just want to close us out with that, because that is exactly what I saw, and how it connects is that simplicity also includes how we are simple with our words and with our thoughts, right? And that
Yeah.
it literally says the God-given fruit is using simple, honest speech without double meanings. It is literally controlling the tongue, that the God-given fruit of simplicity is controlling your tongue. What?
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah. It's
cool. And so
good.
I just think that it really just shows that so many of these disciplines are aligned, and when you fall into one smoothly, it follows suit with others, that you kind of are working in all of these ways, because again, as you've shared, and I think it's so important, spiritual practices are helping us grow closer to God. That's really what they're here to do. So you don't need to be doing every single thing every day, but as you do one and you grow closer to God, it automatically breeds in you these other options, these other fruits, these other disciplines, and you start to really grow in relationship with God in all of these ways instead of one of them.
Yeah.
So everybody, thank you so much for being a part of this today. Honestly, we want to know. I know I held that to the very, very end. You didn't get to hear about it until the very last thing. So I hope you listened and heard how it connected. But we want to know if you knew where we were going, if you knew that's where it was going to connect or not. So send us an email. It's hello@InesFranklin.com. You can also leave a comment on our reels or anything like that on Inés's Instagram page, which is @InesFranklin, or send her a DM. I am up in there too, so I see them and I get to be a part of that conversation with you guys. Or you can go to InesFranklin.com and sign up for our emails there. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're involved in all of these things so you can see these as they are coming up. We are going to be going over the spiritual practices through the end of 2024, so through the end of this year. So there's more coming, and it's super cool to see how they all connect and how they're all happening. So we want you to be a part of that story and just seeing how there's these different spiritual practices that are involved. But no matter what, I hope that the peace and grace of Jesus Christ is with you today and all week long.
God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Uncharted Podcast with Inés Franklin. Learn more about Inés at unchartedpod.com. Follow Inés' journey on Instagram at Inés Franklin. Sign up for our email list to receive direct access to online experiences and more. Thanks for listening, and join us again next time.